Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com. And today I have a very special guest. His name is Bryce McKinley. Hey, Bryce, how are you, brother?
What is going on, man? Thank you for having me, brother. I love it. I love the energy already.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let me give the listeners and viewers a little bit of your background, and then we can dive into it.
Sure.
So Bryce is the co-owner of a real estate brokerage, Master Salesman, Master Sales Trainer, real estate investor specialist, and he has been globally recognized as a top 5 sales trainer, independent business consultant, working with businesses included but not limited to Fortune 500 companies such as Ford, Nissan, Tyco, and ADT. He has been selling since he was 8 years old and training sales professionals for over 20 years. This has allowed him to become a Master Closer and Negotiator. And most recently, he has taken his abilities into real estate, where his team has had over 7,000 homes bought and sold. As the CEO of Sharpen, and we'll get to that in a little bit, a nonprofit in which they help and serve the less fortunate, he is changing the world one life at a time. Amazing, man. I love that. So that's a really good, I love what you have there, and definitely want to dive into that. But I want to go back and I want to take it back to like the beginning, right? Like, where are you from originally? Tell me about your upgrowing, and let's start from there.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Thank you, Cesar. I hear those bios all the time. As a international keynote speaker, it's like, it sounds great, but like, who is this guy, right? And, first and foremost, I am a servant of the Most High God, and I call him Jesus. You guys call him whatever you want. That's just who I call him. And I'm a dad and a husband and a father. And so those are the roles that I like to identify with. I'm a loyal friend. I'm kind of that ride or die, which comes from my upbringing.
Yeah.
And so when you ask me about my upbringing, it's like, gosh, grab some popcorn. Let's go.
Let's do it. Definitely.
Yeah. So I grew up, Cesar, in Northern Illinois, and my parents are both, lower class factory truck driver, blue collar workers. They're not middle or middle upper class. Like, they're lower class, bottom of the totem pole. And that's how I grew up. I grew up thinking that was if I hit 6 figures, gosh, that was like making hundreds of millions of dollars. And I originally, you read the part where I've been selling since I was 8 years old. I've had this internal drive since I was a kid to always get better. And I see my dad work hard and didn't have a great, daddy figure, but I had a great father figure. And what I mean by that is he was dependable. He was faithful. He was a hard worker, and he had some really good, strong values. And then I had a mom who had similar values and wasn't a great mommy per se, but she was a great mother, and she worked her butt off. And heck, even to this day, my mom still works, 80 hours a week. Well, more like 50 or 60 hours a week in a factory, and I can't get her to quit. And so that was instilled in me at a very young age of just not giving up. But I haven't always felt that way. You see, I grew up in Northern Illinois, and at the young age of 8 years old, I had a paper route. I wanted to work. I wanted to help support the family, and I wanted to make money. You know, I thought that making money was what was going to change the world, and little did I know that wasn't necessarily the case. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'll never forget the first time that I faced, you know, what I deemed at the time an obstacle in my life, where Karen, go figure, her name was Karen, she comes over to the house, and Karen's like, well, you see, you got to be 10 to have a paper route in Illinois, and we didn't know. And I mean, I'm 6'5" and 250, 255 on a low day, right? Like, I'm a big guy. And I've always been that size in nature. And so even at 8 years old, you know, they thought that I was older than what I was. They gave me a lot more responsibilities than the average 8-year-old. And I went to work. I went to work having a paper out. And Karen came over a couple weeks in, and she was going to fire me. She was going to fire me because I wasn't 10. And I'll never forget being so heartbroken that I couldn't be a participant in earning money in the family. And I looked at my mom and dad, and I'm like, I looked at Karen, and I'm like, look back at my mom and dad. And so obviously you thought that I had what it took to make it happen. And Karen, you and my parents agreed that I could do this job. Why don't we put the paper out in my parents' name? And if I do a good job when I turn 10, you give me more routes. Boom. Yeah. Next thing you know, my dad had a paper route that I was fulfilling. And by the age of 10, I had 6 paper routes. And yeah, man, I was making more money delivering newspapers than my parents were making, you know, working their 40-hour work week, because I was hustling. I was hustling for tips, collecting money at the door, all that, man. So that's kind of where my sales and profession started, was delivering newspapers as a child. Yeah. And from there, I mean, yeah. I wish I could say it was all downhill from there, but it just wasn't, you know?
You know what? It's funny that now I have a common theme with you. I think I was 16 or so. So I had my kid at the age of 16. And one of the things that I had to do at an early age to kind of bring some money into the table and to support my daughter at the age of 16, I started selling newspapers for the LA Times. Obviously, I wasn't making as much money as I would wanted to. At that time, I needed to get some money to get something going. And so I was doing a couple of routes for LA Times, which is kind of interesting. So I guess one question that comes to mind is, like, where did that drive come from for you to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I want to get better. Obviously, you came from a humble beginning, family not really being rich and whatnot. At the age of 8, to start thinking about, I want to work and become better. Where did that drive come from? Like, how did that grow? Because at 8, you're not really thinking about that, at least not right now. A lot of the kids at 8, all they want to do is play. I don't even know what they do, right? It's just primarily play. And so for you, how did that come about?
Yeah, so I think if I had to put my thumb on it, I looked up to my uncle at the time, and, with my grandparents being immigrants, my parents worked hard, and my uncle and I we were just, a year and a half, 2 years apart. So we were a lot closer friends than we were uncle-nephew relationship. And I remember seeing him, like, sewing the guest sign on the back of his jeans so that he looked like he was in the crowd, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am not going to be a poser. I'm not going to be the fake. I'm going to work my butt off, and I'm going to get the Guess jeans. I'm going to get the, I think at the time, Fila's and Air Jordans were just becoming popular, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go and buy those things that everybody else wants. And so I just started hustling, man. I identified at the time with success as a monetary thing. And I'm glad that I don't feel that way now. But at the time, I believe that was the original, like, attachment that I had to success was that I had to have X amount of money in the bank and the clothes on my back and a house and a car. And that's really what was my driver. Scary part is a few years later, at the age of like 12, my parents would end up, I think it was like between 11 and 12, somewhere in there. I don't really recall. I was in fourth grade, whatever age that was. My parents went through a divorce. And everything that I knew about my previous life went out the window. And what I mean by that is I grew up in a very strict, like Protestant, like Christian home. It was like very cult-like home. I mean, you looked at a TV and you thought you were going to hell, you know? You went swimming in a pool with a girl, you thought you were going to hell. And that's how I grew up. And so when my parents separated, like, everything I knew about God and everything that I knew about life went out the window. And at that point, I decided that I wanted something different. I didn't know at the time that it wasn't the best choice, but I started hanging out with a different crowd and becoming this chameleon and hanging out with, you know, dope dealers and gangbangers and you name it, what would be considered the bottom rung of the totem pole. That's who I hung out with. But I had drive. And so I figured out how to get to the top fast and have everybody look at me as some sort of idol in some sort of way. And I was always just selfishly serving myself. And so, you know, I got into a lot of trouble at a very young age. And by the age of 17, I'd been shot twice, stabbed 5 times, Cesar. I mean, you know, LA, like Chicago is bad too, right? And at the age of 17, I was facing 2 counts of manslaughter. And I mean, I was looking at my life being thrown away.
Wow.
And like you, I had a child at a very young age. My daughter, I mean, she's like 22 now, you know, I was 15 years old. I had a baby. Here I am, a kid with a baby, and I'm going to go away for life. And by the grace of God, I was acquitted of my charges. And that's when I was like, okay, I got a second chance at life. Little did I know, looking back, it was like a third chance at that point, you know? And, my uncle grabbed me by my ear, literally walked me out of the courtroom and said, you're going to come live with me. Ended up staying with my uncle and sleeping on his couch, caused some marital problems there, I'm sure, because I was not a good kid, sneaking out, smoking dope. And all I knew was I had drive, I wanted nice things, and I seen all the other car salesmen at the car dealership that he put me to work at making money. I was detailing cars. And I figured if I could make hundreds of thousands of dollars selling dope and tens of thousands of dollars selling newspapers, like I could sell cars. And that's kind of what got me into the automotive industry initially. And so I begged and begged my uncle for a position. And one snowy December day, he's like, if you can sell a car today, I'll put you on the sales team next week. Well, next week is Christmas, and I would turn 18, and that would be kind of my becoming of being a man, right? Like I'd be 18 now, and you could go work on the car lot. So that's what I did. I opened a phone book, and I just started calling. People. I didn't know what to say. I just knew that I had to talk to people. And so I started talking to people and having conversations and asking questions. And I'm sure that we'll probably go into some of that, you know, the sales stuff later. But some of these things just came so naturally for me. And wouldn't you know it, the first day in the automotive industry and never having any experience, I sold 3 cars.
Wow.
Yeah. My
That's
uncle's
amazing.
like, you're on.
You're on the team now. That's it.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what you said, and I want to get your input, because I think a lot of people that might be watching this or even listening to us, they might be facing something similar. And, you know, obviously you were going through that divorce, or your parents were going through the divorce. When you started hanging around with that crowd, was it more of a I'm looking for acceptance. I'm looking for this drive. I'm looking for attention, because I feel like sometimes people tend to go into a crowd of people because they're missing something in their life. And whether it's a good crowd or a bad crowd, they're still going to go into that. Was that similar to you, or what was the driving factor for you to go into that crowd?
You know, looking back on it, I've been asked this before, and I think the overarching thing was I just wanted to be accepted. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure some of your audience members just wish that they could fit in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
you feel overwhelmed, you feel like maybe the outcast. I just wanted to fit in. You know, when you grow up in a cult, everybody looks at you funny because you never wear shorts and you have your hair cut short and you can't grow it out and you can't grow facial hair. And like, I just wanted to fit in. And so I was just trying to find my circle, and I wasn't musically inclined, so I couldn't hang out with the band kids. You know, I was smarter than what school was allowing me to be because it wasn't challenging. So I wasn't getting good grades because it just didn't matter, you know. And I found my solace in being looked at and fitting in with a crowd that demanded respect, you know. And that's one thing that anybody listening, I would ask you, like, is it better to want respect or is it better to have respect? Have. Yeah. Always, right? And so I wanted respect, and so I was going after it. And I think that's what really drove me underlying and kind of unknowingly to go toward that route, because I knew that the gangs in my neighborhood, you know, they had respect. It was more out of fear, but they had what I was looking for at the time.
Yeah, definitely. And now looking back, how critical is it, the associations and the crowds that you do hang around with? What is your take on that, the average five that, you know, people talk about?
That is an understatement. You are the sum of the five people you hang around with. You want to hang out with crappy head people like douchebag dummies, you're going to be a douchebag dummy. You want to hang around with, you know, wealthy people? Well, you'll become wealthier. Does that mean you're going to be as wealthy? Not always. But you're not going to make the same choices hanging with this circle as you would this circle. And at the time, that circle was what got me into the trouble that I got into.
Yeah, that definitely. That I can see that. I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people misconstrue it, and they get confused on the associations, and they feel like they're getting something from this group of people when in reality they're actually being set back so many times. So how can you differentiate something like that, even with just in general, right? Like, how do you know when you're probably in a good presence of people that are gonna edify you and they're gonna help you out versus, you know, pull you down and maybe set you back?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cesar. So a couple of things that I look for when I'm looking for a circle is, number one, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You know, I try to find somebody that's got more, has had more, and has lost more than what I've got. And so I try to be in those circles. I want to be in those circles where people are going to challenge me. Number one, they're going to challenge my thinking. They're going to challenge my values. They're going to challenge my morals, whether it's good or bad. Those are the things that I'm looking at, number one. Number two, and just as important, I'm looking for a group of people in the circle that I choose to be in that will not only challenge me, but also lift me up, because I'm going to fall. I don't know it as well as you do. I don't know it as well as they do, right? And so I'm looking, secondly, and just as important, for those that know that I may not be at their level, but they're willing to take a shot and they're willing to lift me up when they see that I put in the work.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Kind of knowing your backstory, and I know that there's you've gone through a lot, obviously, you know, from depression to alcohol to drugs to all of these different things. I said there was a more of a crucial aspect of your life, I believe, and I want you to talk about, which is the loss of your son, your wife. You were pretty much literally immense of taking your own life. What got you to that point? Tell me more about that story.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, you know, being in the automotive industry, I didn't know, my uncle didn't know how great we were doing. We just knew that we had something. And so I was 19 at the time, 20 years old. They have what's called a walk around competition in the automotive industry. It's basically like a fake test drive where you demonstrate the vehicle's products and features and benefits. And I wanted to get into this competition because I became really competitive, and I entered this competition. It's graded by your peers. This is the key thing. It's a competition graded by your peers, and you go through this process of likability, knowledge, and overall presentation of the vehicle. And as you are all grading each other, you know, the cream rises to the top, right? So I went and entered this competition at a local level, went to regionals, went to nationals, and there's only been 2 other people that have ever been to nationals 2 times. I've been there 4 times.
Nice.
4 years in a row, 19, 20, 21, and 22. I went 4 years in a row all the way to the top, and I got first place twice and second place twice. And so the automotive industry is like, who is this guy? What is he doing? Come to find out, I was averaging about 75 cars a month. The national average to this day is 10.
Wow.
And so at 19, 20, 21 years old, I'm making millions of dollars selling cars and just blowing out the competition. So the dealership started wondering who this kid was. And so at 22, I was recruited out of my dealership by Ford Motor Company. And that's when I found out about mentorship and coaching and things like that. Because I didn't know what a mentor was. I'd never really had a mentor, you know. I was just some gangster from the streets that got a break.
Yeah.
But not really. My uncle had been a mentor. My dad had been a mentor, and I didn't know it, right? I just didn't look at them the same way. So when I started paying, that's when I started playing. I like to say that a little differently than most. Like, I paid for a mentor now. It's like, I better invest in myself. And when I did that, I started seeing bigger and better and faster results. And so I got recruited out of my dealership at 22 and traveled the world teaching my 5-step sales process in the automotive industry and 7-step sales process and my 5-step conversation. And from there, man, it was crazy. My wife had 5 companies, you know, she had 2 salons and 3 daycares. Like, we had the world by the you-know-what, the cojones, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you being Hispanic, my wife was from Veracruz. Like, she had that same work drive. Like, we were just grinding. We were a power couple. And in 2006, unfortunately, she had a baby that was killed. And I wasn't a great dad. Remember, I didn't have a great dad figure. I just knew how to work. I wasn't a great husband. I just worked. Yeah, so I didn't have a great dad role model. And so I wasn't a great dad. I wasn't a great husband. And all I know is that I knew how to work. And so while I was working over the next 24 months, she would end up drinking her life away. And I'll never forget getting a phone call. I just met with her the night before. And Friday, June 13th, I got a call and she had committed suicide. And as I look back, and I've told this story 1,000 times, Cesar, and I wish that I could have been there for her. And I mean, her mom was my Sunday school teacher, man. And I'll never forget getting that phone call, and I literally just checked out. I checked out. Over the next 18 months, I would go to lose close to $80 million, 5 companies down the drain, up my nose and in a bottle. And then I got a phone call one March afternoon, 2010. This girl that I'd been messing around with, she said she was pregnant. And I had a reason to live. I had another reason. So we were going to do this. So I'm going to take care of my responsibilities. Let's do this. So it got real. It got real fast. So we're going through the whole pregnancy thing. November comes along. I've been sober now for a few months, and we have our son. We have some complications with our son. It's like, gosh, I got to work. I got to be here for this kid, this lady. And we were going to do this. I ended up getting some contracts with Tyco Corporation. I had a contract with the Pentagon, doing some hostage negotiations with the CIA. Tyco had a subsidiary company, ADT, the alarm company. I was doing good. We moved down to Dallas, Texas for a contract with ADT. And this was, I think, January. Well, I've been negotiating back and forth, but January I really solidified the contract. We moved down to Texas, and man, I come home one day from the office, and there my son's mom was passed out on the bed, pills all over, couple-month-old baby on the floor, and I'm just like, what? Like, what is, like, I lost my mind. I'm like, not again. I'm in control. And that's the key. You're in control. You can come and overcome anything. I grabbed my son. I packed a bag. And what does any good gangster do? Gets evidence, right? I set my son back down and took pictures, and I left. Cesar, the next 9 to 12 months would be the fight of my life. I would not only lose those contracts because of the drama that she created, I would be homeless, sleeping in hotel rooms, bouncing around in shelters, sleeping in my car because my bank had been froze and she had drained every last penny. But I got custody of my son.
Awesome.
I was going to make it. And I'll never forget, I'd just gotten off the phone with my brother. It was September 28th, 2011. Been on the streets now for, 8-9 months. I got off the phone with my brother and I just said I couldn't do it. I wrote my son a letter. I wrote my mom a letter, told her to take care of my boy. I pulled my car out in the middle of the road. The same 40 cal that sits next to my bed tonight. Hasn't jammed since, and never jammed before, but that night it jammed 3 times in my mouth. And I got mad. I got mad at God. I got mad at the world, and I'm like, show up! If you're half as great as you say you are and anything that anybody else says, show up. And it was in that moment that I knew that I wasn't in control as much as I thought I was because I had no faith. I was merely reacting and not being intentional. I was being reactionary and not intentional. And because times got tough, I chose a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And thank God that the gun jammed. Because you fast forward now 9 years, I've been immensely blessed. And I learned a very valuable lesson. When you selflessly help already persons that are eager for nurturing, you'll change the world. It's also an acronym for sharpen.
I was gonna get that, but wow, I gotta say wow, and that's amazing. And there's also an acronym for wow, words of wisdom, because I think that you drop so many nuggets there, and the story and not only it's not just a story, it's a true story that has so many different lessons that I really hope that the people that are listening and watching this can really take that, because this is a true story of overcoming not once, not twice, multiple times of those things that we perceive as failures, where in reality there are lessons to be learned, lessons to take and see how we can improve that on our future in our lives. And you really have gone through that, right? And talking about the things you're doing now and going to Coach Sharpen, let's dive into that. How do you come up with that name? And obviously you kind of already talked about the acronym, but let's talk more about that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Coach Sharpen it's a persona. You can be whomever you want to be, as long as you be the person that the person is that gets the results. And so one day I was looking in my Bible and you know, the Bible says, as iron sharpens iron, so does one another to his brother. Whether you believe in the religious aspects of it or not, you can't deny that the Bible is the #1 best-selling book of all time. Mm-hmm. And so I read it and study it for life principles and husband principles and dad principles and work principles and management and leadership and all of these things, and it stuck out at me. Well, if iron sharpens iron, just like one another to his brother, then we need to be surrounding ourselves with a higher frequency of persons. We need to be getting sharpened daily by not just the words of our mouth, but the affirmation of others. Mm. And so sharpen to me is like a superhero cape. I walk in this door, I can put on any one of these hats. But when I walk in this office, when I show up on camera, when I'm on stage, I'm ready to sharpen, because I can only work with people that are serious about working with me. And those people that choose to work with me forever have their life changed. And so sharpen being the acronym, similar to like the Bible, it represents selflessly helping already persons eager for nurturing. And so when you're ready, you know, I look at it like this, twofold. Number one, if you want success, or you want money, or you want this new car, well, when you're holding on to that figment of your imagination, you don't have your hands open to receive it. And so one, I'm going to ask you to realize, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, open your hands and let go of what you perceive as the success, in order to receive more success. And two, know this: the map is not the territory. You see, I could give you the address to my house right now, and if you've never been to Dallas, you would never know that the hills and valleys that you get to cross to get to my house, the 5-story overpasses like they have out in LA, right? Like, you're not going to know what the territory is in front of you until you get there, because the map is not the territory. And so if you're going through some things, you're interpreting your life by the keys of your map. And if you keep getting the same results, you need to look at someone else's map. You need to reach out and grab someone else's keys to the vehicle. And when you do that, you can rewrite your map. You can make your map much more efficient. And when you do that, success comes in greater quantities and greater qualities.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Talking about success, and I think you see it now differently, and I want to kind of piggyback to what we're talking about. At the beginning of your journey, selling cars or doing any kind of sales, it was more chasing the money and defining success based on a monetary value. What is your take on success now? What is your definition of that?
I believe that if you throw a rock into a river, a lake, or a pond, no matter how big that rock is, that it makes a ripple. And so my definition of success is changing the world. I don't necessarily have to be recognized as the person that changes the world, but if I so much as influence one of your listeners, or maybe Cesar, you get off of here and you do something tremendous because of something you took away, I've done my part. I've changed the world because the world in which I live in exists with all of you. Let me say that again. The world in which I exist exists because of all of you. We are one spiritual being, just living different human experiences. And so if I have an opportunity to change the trajectory of your human experience, that means that the world has been completely changed. And that's my definition of success. I am changing the world. When I look at my vision board, I see myself next to Jesus and Oprah and Abraham Lincoln, and the list goes on my vision board over there. Definition of success to me is changing the world in which someone else lives in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about sales, and if you can give me, you have a lot of experience with that. And whether you're working for somebody or working for yourself, I always said you got to work harder on yourself than you do on anybody else. I know Les Brown is a friend of yours, and so I like a lot of things that he talks about, and so definitely I like the idea of you got to be hungry, right? To move.
You got to be hungry, he says.
Yeah, exactly. I love that, and there's a lot of things that I take away from him, and so in terms of your self experience, right? What are some tips or things that you can say, hey, it doesn't matter what you're selling, or you might be selling yourself at work, because you working for somebody else is you have to sell yourself, your services, to become better, get a raise, whatever the case may be. How do you go about that?
So, one thing that Les Brown says, since you brought up my friend, I got a shout out to Les. I love you, my man. It's similar to like the open hand model, right? Like your dream was given to you. You just have to be ready, willing, and able to accept it. And if you want to grow and develop yourself, you have to be willing to embrace failure. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And so when I think about that, and the quote that he states there is, you have to be willing to embrace failure. When you can accept that you're going to fail and know that that failing forward step is further than you were before you took the step, you've already started your path down to your road to success. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. And so when I look at sales and getting better and better every single time, two things. One, I practice. Like, I keep my sales scripts. I've closed over 7,592 transactions as of today. I keep my sales script right here, and it's like beat up, and I print it off when it starts falling apart. I practice this thing every day.
Wait. So you're trying to tell me that you do all these transactions and you're still going off of a sales script?
Absolutely. Word for word.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't deviate. The only deviation is like the little curveballs that the potential person do. It's just merely to suffice their need. Maybe they made a statement or they ask a question. It's like, I'll address it, and then I go right back to where I left off. So if my script is this long and I got here and they threw me over here, guess what? Boom, I go right back there and I finish where I'm at. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I don't deviate from the plan, because what do they say? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right?
Yep.
Well, I know that script has closed over 7,589 transactions, 92, I'm sorry. Like, gosh, I'm going to read that sucker word for word, and then practice the tonalities and practice the nuances. So that way, when a curveball comes, I can dodge and weave and get right back to where I left off.
Yeah. And one thing I know that you talk about too is simplicity. Like, keep it simple too, right? And sometimes we tend to overcomplicate things. And I know for myself, I've done that multiple times in many different things. Starting this podcast, I was worried about the freaking the banner or how that's gonna look like. When I started writing my book, I was overcomplicating things. And it really started with, at the end of the day, when I said, you know what? How about if I just start? Just take action now and do something. It's not gonna be perfect, because if I'm reaching perfection, then there's nothing else for me to work on, right? And so just start somewhere. And I know you really embrace the idea of simplicity. Talking about Les Brown, and it kind of talks about what you just talked about. He says, it's better to be prepared for an opportunity than not have one, than have an opportunity and not be prepared. And I think a lot of that comes down to practice, even if the opportunity is not there, so that when you do get the opportunity, you're ready to rock and roll. And I've seen that plenty times, where people don't do that. They're waiting for that opportunity. And now it's like, okay, what do I got to do? You're being reactive instead of being proactive.
Yeah. I mean, I love that we're both quoting Les Brown. He would be really proud of us right now. So thank you, Les, for all of your words of wisdom. One thing that resonated with me, I spoke with Les about 2 years ago in San Diego, and he quoted this several years prior, and he heard me quote it on stage, and it still resonates with me, because I had to die to the person that I was. Like, I am no longer this gangbanging, dope dealing fool. I'm a sales executive for Ford. Now I'm a corporate executive in Fortune 500 companies. Now I'm self-employed coaching Fortune 500 companies. You have to be, this is what Les Brown said. He said, you have to be willing to allow the person you are today die so that you can give birth to the person that you're meant to become. You have to be willing to die to who you are today so that you can become the person you want to become, give birth to the person you want to become. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions or misunderstood things, is like, does that mean you have to give up your old habits? It might. Maybe you use those habits to propel you. However, whatever that looks like, wherever you're going, and this is something I quoted a couple weeks ago, it's like, in order to have the success that you desire, you have to be today who the person is that's getting the results. You want to sell 20 cars a month? What does that guy do? Does he get up at 4 a.m.? You better start getting up at 4 a.m. You want to close 80 houses a month on average? I'm up at 4:45. I read my Bible. I make my bed. I brush my teeth. I lay back down. I meditate. I don't turn my phone on until 9:30 a.m.
Yeah.
You gotta be the person that you want to be that gets the results, but you gotta be that person today.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the other thing I wanted to ask is, what are your daily, Tony Robbins refers to them as rituals. What are your daily habits or rituals that you do on a day-to-day basis to put you in this positive state of mind?
Yeah, I love that. So there's, it's kind of a hybrid of like Tony Robbins rituals and the Miracle Morning. It's really what I've done. That's what I've done for 20 years. And, if there's something better out there, I'll look at it. But it's like, I like waking up and splashing cold water in my face and going outside and nobody's around. It's still dark out sometimes, to just talk to God and my maker and just show him thanks, right? I make my bed. I read affirmations for 20 minutes at a time. I meditate for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. I pray for 20 minutes at a time. I listen to positive influence podcasts and things like this that encourage me. And I work out. I should work out more. That's something I'm working on. I'm still human, right?
Right.
And then I go and shower and brush my teeth and drink my coffee or whatever it is that everybody else does, but I don't do all those things for myself first before I get myself right first. Does that make sense? I take care of myself so that myself can take care of everybody else.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's the way I look at it, Cesar. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know who quoted this, and I probably should, but you got to win your morning to conquer your day. I believe that was Tony Robbins that said that.
Yeah.
You have to win your morning to conquer your day. The rest of the day, it's planned out strategically, down to the minute. Like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. And I do that on Sunday nights. On Sunday nights, I map out my week. If there's a curveball in there or something, I know that I have the flexibility to move this or this around so I can make things happen, right? But Sunday night, I know what I'm doing for the next 10 days.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, come day 7 and something needs to change, I don't know where I'm at. So I look at it just like when I was in the car business. When I was in the car business, the first thing that I would do is I would walk the lot every morning. I would touch every single car. Wait, there was a yellow one here yesterday. What happened to it? Make a note, right? I'm in real estate. I don't drive around, but I look in the neighborhoods at what's available, what's on the market, what's sold, what's pending, what's coming soon. I know the inventory better than 99% of realtors in my market, and I'm not even licensed. I own a brokerage, but I'm not licensed. Yeah. I know my product, I know my service, but most importantly, I know my client that I'm trying to work toward to help.
Yeah, no, I love that. I have a couple more questions for you before I let you go, because I can go on forever, and I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way. And so for the ones that are watching, just like take note of those habits and those ideas that you can also implement on a day-to-day basis to kind of get you going in your own journey, whatever that might be, right? So your son, I kind of want to get an idea of what are some of the things or teachings that you've done for your son, because he is the middle school millionaire, right? And I want to talk about that for a second, because obviously your childhood was a lot different than what it is that is for him. And for those that are watching that might be parents, I mean, what are some tips? What are some ideas that you can give us?
Love. Love unconditionally. Your child is going to make mistakes. I'm hard on my boy. I'm hard. But there's days that if I lose my cool and I yell or scream at him, it's not because I don't love him. It's because I expect more. And I think the number one problem that we have as parents in this world right now is that, one, we don't know how to set boundaries and we don't know how to set expectations. So my son knows first thing in the morning he does, before he does anything, he makes his bed. He works that miracle morning. He makes his bed. He spends time reading the Bible. He spends time listening to a podcast. He spends time reading a book before he ever comes out of his bedroom. Like, we meet at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the middle of the house. He ain't seeing me before then, because I know from this little young 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old until he could read and do things on his own, he was doing it with me. He knows what the expectation is. Yesterday, the perfect example, I got on his butt. I walked to the bathroom upstairs. My office is upstairs, and he's the second bedroom down the hall, right? We got more bedrooms than we need, by the way. So there's 3 of us, and we got 6 bedrooms. It's crazy. We walked down the hall, and I looked in his room, and I was just expecting to smile and keep on walking to use the restroom in between meetings. Not when his bed wasn't made. No, sir. Young man, get over here. What's wrong with this picture? Oh, I forgot. We don't forget. Excellence doesn't forget. Mediocrity forgets. You want to be mediocre or you want to be excellent? That's the question. I want to be excellent. Get your butt in there and make your bed now. I'm hard on him. And I make him go run laps because he forgot. He won't forget for a while. Yeah. And then when he comes in, I give him a hug and tell him how much I love him and explain to him why it's important and have a conversation. The other side of that is not just ruling with an iron fist, but also listening and asking questions, but not being afraid to answer questions. Because, my 9-year-old's been out and hanging out with more adults than most adults do, So he asked me what sex is and what this is and what that is. The minute you shy away from your child and your child asks you a question, you shy away from it or make excuses or lie to them, you've lost all credibility. And I won't do that. That's what I do differently. So I may be a little harder on him than most parents, but I also feel that I love him differently than most parents. And I know that he's set up for greatness. I mean, the kid raised over $12 million at 7 years old for the homeless kids here in Dallas, Fort Worth, all by himself. When he put his mind to it, he got anything done. Now he wants to make money. He'll go raise money, a couple $100 in an hour and be like, I'm good. You know,
Yeah.
It's just not the same driver because he's working on other projects right now, you know.
Right.
But it's the consistency, the boundaries, and the expectations. I don't let my kid come and hang out in my bedroom. That's an adult's room.
Yeah,
He doesn't know any different.
I love that. Yeah, and then, you know, again, so just take note of those things, love, conversations that do matter, the boundaries, creating all that stuff. That's amazing. You have something here that I like, and you said love like you have never been heard, and live life as if there's always another explanation. Can you elaborate on that, please?
You've been doing your homework, Cesar. That's a fire right there. Yeah, so we've all been hurt. We've all had hard times. But the number one key to true relationships is when a relationship is freely given. And the only way to do that is to love. And so if you love like you've never been hurt, that doesn't mean forget about things. You can use things as keys to your map. You know, maybe you've been cheated on. That doesn't mean that every guy's an a-hole and a cheater. That doesn't mean that every man in the world is a prick. There's a lot of them out there. But guess what, ladies? A lot of us guys feel the same way. Mm-hmm. But when you love like you've never been hurt, it's easier to forgive. And when you can truly love and truly forgive and use those past experiences as an opportunity to set the boundaries and expectations, you'll get anything you want in life. Now, what makes it easier is the second part. Living life as if there's another explanation. So, Cesar, let's say that you and I have a phone call and we missed the call. I could be pissed off and charge you $2,500 because that's about what my time is for a 30-minute call. Mm-hmm. You missed my call, man. I'm going to have to send you a bill. Or I could be like, Cesar, my man, is everything okay? Oh, gosh. You forgot about our appointment. You must be busy. I'm going to rack them. The sales stuff. I'm going to rack them. But, you know, when you live life like there's another explanation, let me give it to you like this. How many of you guys have ever been cut off driving down the freeway?
All the time.
All the time. You're in LA, Cesar, all the time.
All the time.
How many times have you got ticked off and pissed off and you slammed on the horn?
I would say 9 out of 10 times.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's different when we're sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic and we know that nobody's going anywhere fast. But when we're all going 65, 70 mile an hour and traffic is flowing and that guy cuts you off, maybe there's another explanation. Maybe he just got a phone call that his wife died. Maybe he just got a phone call that his mom was ran over by a Mack truck or diagnosed with cancer the night before and he just wasn't thinking. Maybe he's trying to be a better dad and he's on his way to his kid's soccer game that he's never been to. When we live life like there's always another explanation, we can be imperturbable. We can allow others to make mistakes and not allow it to affect us. We can forgive others and live and truly live. And so I ask, you want to overcome anything? Love like you've never been hurt. Forgive like there's no tomorrow. And live life like there's always another explanation.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Last question for you. Where can people find you if they wanted to connect with you?
Appreciate that. First off, I just want to say thank you, Cesar.
Yeah,
Like,
thank you.
we wing this. You had a plan. I just want to like give you raw answers. That's how I love working. I told you that at the beginning.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
You guys, you can Google me. You can say, you can Google Bryce McKinley, BryceMckinley. You won't miss me. I'm the guy with the backwards hat that says Sharpen on it. You can find me on Instagram at Coach Sharpen, LinkedIn or Facebook, Bryce McKinley, or at REI Results Coach, or you can check out our website at reiresultsacademy.com if you need anything in the real estate investment world, or if you are interested in the retail side, trustedresultsrealty.co.
That's awesome. And talking about just one last one. So give me one of the things that you offer. You offer coaching for real estate. Give me a little bit of your services so that people that might want to get into the real estate might be able to reach out to you.
Yeah, so I found real estate investing, wholesaling specifically, about 8 years ago when I attempted suicide. And most people do 1 or 2 transactions a month if they're doing business pretty consistently. The big guys do 15 or 20 deals a month. But I found with my 5-step and 7-step process, I've been able to average 87 closings. As of last week, that was 87 per month over the last 8 years. And so per month, we're closing 80 to 100 deals a month. And so we're trying to share that with the world and what we're doing, because we have been virtual this entire time, even prior to COVID. And so COVID for us just only helped us help others and switch and adapt, where everybody else is trying to adjust and pivot. We've already been virtual. And so we're teaching people how to invest in real estate with no money out of pocket, no money out of pocket, not using other people's money, just using no money, and making 10, 12, 11, $10,000 to $12,000 on average per transaction. And so that's wholesaling real estate. I also do independent consulting for businesses, sales training, team building, things like that. That's, reach out to me at REI Results Coach or at Coach Sharpen on Instagram, or REI Results Coach on Facebook. But then my favorite thing to teach is neuro-linguistic programming and sales. Sales and persuasion, the art of the conversation, and neuro-linguistic programming. I've been, master practitioner, NLP instructor, and sales aficionado or trainer. They all have different titles. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just a guy with a cool hat, man.
There you are. That's it, man.
So I love teaching sales and persuasion. But for me, outside of business and sales, for me, it's the heart. It's like changing the mind and changing the heart to make the world a better place. That's really what I love to teach. So
that's awesome. Well, Bryce, thank you so much for being here, guys. Make sure you guys connect with them. Just reach out to him. So once again, thank you, Bryce, for being here.
My pleasure, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, guys.
Definitely. And guys, do not forget to like, comment, subscribe to this channel. Please share this video, man. There was a lot of golden nuggets. Just make sure you get the word out and reach out to Bryce. So I will see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.